Sure. Hi everyone. My name is Tanisha Phoenix. I am a parent of two children that are currently attending Byron Court Primary School, and I wish to speak on the point in the report 3.3.3 on the academisation of Byron Court.
Thank you.
Okay. So firstly, we understand that we put in an FOI request to help us understand how an outstanding school with teaching status in the borough has been left to languish, really. And we're hoping to really, if the panel can help us answer some questions. We understand that a RIG was put in place in September 2022, and that was chaired by Shirley Parks. We're trying to understand why the RIG was put in place, what issues were identified in 2022, September 2022, and are these some of the same issues that were identified by the Ofsted inspection? We also want to understand what the RIG had actually achieved in the space of 1 year. So the Ofsted inspection took place in November 2023. So the RIG had been in place for actually over a year. So we're trying to understand how many meetings took place, what was the level of monitoring and support that was put into place by the RIG, by the chair of the RIG. And if the RIG at some point wasn't working, was there any interventions put in by the chair of the RIG to ensure that improvements were being made, the improvements that had been set out from the beginning of the RIG? And if so, were these issues where the RIG was in place but the improvements were not being made, were they ever escalated? And if so, when and where? We understand after speaking with Byron Court that the meetings have not been as frequent as the school would have liked, with often council members actually cancelling the RIG meetings. Do we feel as though this has led to the poor inspection rating that Byron Court received in November 2023? We also want to understand if a school that was mentioned in 3.3.2 was rated as requires improvement in 2022 to 2023, had a RIG put in place and was, quote, on a journey to good, why has the RIG failed Byron Court? And by the time an Ofsted inspection came, it was rated inadequate. What has gone wrong? And do the committee really believe that Brent Council and the RIG have done everything in their power to help the school and avoid what has now become a forced academy order? And that's what we're trying to understand right now.
Thank you very much indeed, Tanisha, for that, and thank you very much for finishing on time. Grateful to you. Now we will come to Veena. Veena, good evening to you and very welcome to the committee. And like Tanisha, you will also have 3 minutes, which will start once you have finished introducing yourself to us. Thank you.
Great, thank you. I'm Veena Bakaria, and like Tanisha, I'm a parent of 2 students at Byron Court. So I've also got some questions with regards to 3.3.3 and Byron Court's forced academisation order.
Thank you.
Okay, so my questions are to do with our processes now to academisation. So we acknowledge that you are legally bound to comply with the academisation order, and Gwen Grahl in a cabinet meeting on April the 9th reaffirmed the council's commitment to supporting and improving the school and assured us that additional leadership capacity would be in place after Easter. So these are some of the questions to that. What, if any, guarantees can you give us that the council will be living up to its commitment to protect and promote community schools as per the Labour manifesto? Will you commit to pushing for a re-inspection, as we will be pushing Ofsted for one? We're campaigning for this re-inspection of the school. We want to ensure that when Ofsted come in, improvements are seen. What guarantees can you give us that the RIG that is currently in place will do what is expected and what is required, so that we can show these rapid improvements to Ofsted should they come in for a re-inspection? what, if any, additional resources are you able to provide to Byron Court? Councillor Grohl mentioned in the cabinet meeting that there would be additional capacity put in place for SLT at Byron Court, and that this would be happening after Easter. We'd like some updates on that if possible, what that looks like, who those individuals might be, and what the level of support will be for Byron Court. And then finally, will the scrutiny committee agree to return to this item in your next meeting so that we're able to receive details on any improvements that have happened in this interim period between now and your next meeting? As we understand it, Harris will be possibly taking over the school in September, but we have the summer term to show that the school have made improvements since November and push for our re-inspection. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed for that, Rina. And also thank you again to Tanisha. We are grateful to you.
Thank you as well to our two speakers who are parents at Byron Court. I did write to the Secretary of State for Schools on Friday, passing on some of the concerns that were raised by parents and asking for him to reconsider plans to academise at Byron Court. And I will share any response I get on that. We have rapidly recruited an experienced interim head teacher, who I'm sure parents have been informed about recently. And regarding re-inspection, I am happy to use anything within my power to ask for the school to be re-examined at the right time, of course, once improvements have been put in place. I think you asked a number of operational questions about the specific support that's been provided via the RIG. And my colleague Shirley Parks is here tonight. I'm sure she can respond to those as well.
The reference points in relation to Byron Court, I think be very happy to pick up those points separately with parents. There was an FOI submitted which we picked up yesterday morning, and we'll be replying to that in line with council timescales.
So we set up a rapid improvement group for Byron Court in September 2022, following a review by our Setting a School Effectiveness team earlier that year in May, as well as a response to some concerns from the governors. So we set up the group. We met very regularly. We dealt with a range of issues and supported a range of different issues at the school, including the early years foundation stage, writing, safeguarding, SEND and leadership, including monitoring and tracking pupil progress, because that was something the school hadn't been doing very well. That group is now continuing to support on some of the issues identified by Ofsted and issues that were already in progress. So, for example, tracking the attainment of children with special and educational needs. So a range of different support was put in place. We also provided a lot of support to the school to brokers, additional consultants and capacity to address some specific issues, and that is continuing. We've brokered further support since the Ofsted inspection. And I think going back to the general support, which is my point really, the school effectiveness lead professional, who is the key relationship holder on the ground with schools, has provided that school with a lot of very detailed support on learning walks, supporting leadership and management, and that is continuing. So as a rapid improvement group school, the school automatically gets additional resource from the local authority. And that again is tailored to need, and in that case was very much tailored to the need of the school.
Thank you very much for that. Grateful to you.
We're saying we're taking Byron Court separately, but can I just outline my questions, whether you're going to answer them now or in a group? But my three questions were after hearing the parents, etc. Would the RIG still be available if the school is academised? Is there an issue with recruitment and retention of staff? And how much of the problems that Byron Court are now facing are to do with the fact that children with complex needs, etc., might not be places for them elsewhere, and there's sort of no extra provision for them within the school? Yeah.
Thank you for that, Kathleen. Shirley, I don't know if you want to pick that up for me. Or Nigel?
In terms of the RIG process, that would not be in place once the academisation goes through, because the Harris Federation, that has been identified by the Department for Education to be the sponsor for the school, have their own school improvement staff and methods and approaches. So they will then take over responsibility for the school improvement journey. The local authority, however, we're working with Harris, and will continue to work with Harris to support the school, because we maintain the view, and we always will, that any child in a Brent school, whatever their government status, is a Brent child. And for us, it's really important we're making sure that they are getting a good quality education. So we would continue to be in dialogue with Harris, but the rig itself would cease to operate.
Thank you very much for that.
I just want to say as well to, while I get the opportunity, to Veena and Tanisha, recognise that there might be more you want to kind of speak about, and that, you know, there's 88 schools in Brent, and this paper is about school attainment across the borough, so that it might not be the best forum. But if you drop me an email, I'm very happy to catch up with you. If there's other questions you have after the response to the freedom of information request, or things at the political level, then by all means we should organise a meeting, and I can listen to some of your concerns. And
again, that equally applies from us, Tanisha and Veena. So this is very much an alien report. So the committee is very much focused around that. And Byron Court is one aspect of that. So if there are any questions that you feel that the committee should be focusing on, then of course you are very welcome to get in touch with us. And rest assured, we will maintain the focus. And rest assured, we do have other business this evening, so we wouldn't be able to wholly focus on this particular subject matter this evening. But rest assured, we do take everything that you have said to us in your respective presentation on board seriously, and we will be keeping a watching brief. Rest assured of that. So let me thank both of our Brent Youth Parliament friends. Really is hugely heartening to hear your questions and your contribution at every single sessions of ours. And I know you have to leave now, but we look forward to having your support next time. Thank you very much indeed this evening. So let me now come to Tazi. I know you want to come in, but there are a number of colleagues before you. So I have seen your hand, and I will come back to you in a moment. But let me bring Rajan. Thank you for waiting. Rajan, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. To the officers, we have a rapid improvement group in Brent. Just last 2.5, 3 years, we would like to have what are the improvements we have achieved from the schools. That's a number one question. The second one, school admissions on the academies. We have had any control, even though it's state funded school. We are receiving a lot of complaints from residents. I'm the councillor for the Wembley Central. There are 2 academies nearby. The local residents are not managed to get any places. So this is how do we going to achieve the control of locals getting the things that can I have?
Thank
on
you.
Those 2, please.
Thank you for that. And I think, Jen, I think the first point speaks to your earlier reply. I think it'd be helpful to know the work, the positive work that Rapid Improvement Group are doing. And perhaps you can respond to that by perhaps giving an example where you feel that there is a real tangible improvement that you can identify. Thank you.
I think overall, I think to say really that this is a very, very positive process, and it's a very successful process. We usually see schools that are part of a rapid improvement group either achieve a good or better outcome at Ofsted, or if they are currently sitting on a judgment less than that at their next Ofsted inspection, we usually see an improvement. And my 2+ years that I've been the head of the Setting School Effectiveness Service, We have on average between 4 and 6 schools that are party to a rapid improvement group. And we do it very much as a partnership model. So we work very closely with the schools, with the school leaders, the staff and the governors to monitor improvement plans, to put in place resources as necessary and to continually evaluate the impact of that.
Are you just able to give such one example to demonstrate, to provide the committee with some sort of
Okay.
assurance that, you know, this is an example, and here it is how it was 3 months ago or 6 months ago, and here we are today.
I'll
Type
give an
of scenario.
example. I won't name the school because it's not
Perfect.
our usual practice
Perfect,
to do
perfect.
so. We had one school that had a Section 8 Ofsted inspection, which means that the judgment doesn't change, but it can be that if the inspectors note that if it was a full inspection, the outcome might be better or worse, they identify that they'll come back to do a full inspection. We had one school that was the case, and inspectors said that if the school was re-inspected, it was possible that the outcome would be less than good. So we implemented a rapid improvement group, and we met half-termly with the group, and that group consisted of me as the chair, the chair of governors. There was 2 chairs in the period, actually. There was a change of chair, head teacher, and other members of staff as appropriate. In between the RIG meetings, then we actually carried out the actions that the RIG group had agreed. So, you know, if we put in place some extra support for writing, for example, as we did in this school, we would commission a consultant. She worked with the school. We monitored the progress, and actually we went and we looked at the progress in the children's books and in the classroom. When that school was re-inspected, they received a very good outcome, a very good, if you can have a good. It was a full Section 5 inspection. It was a very positive report, and there was no indication that the school was at risk of being
Great,
less than
thank you
good.
for that. We are grateful to you. And I think as far as Rajan's second point is concerned, perhaps very briefly, because there are many questions, and perhaps we can take that offline as well.
And with regards to admissions, we're actually doing quite well in Brent in terms of parents who get one of their first top 3 preferences. So in secondary, when we did National Offer Day in secondary earlier this year, 84% of parents got one of their first, 89% of parents got one of their first 3 preferences. And yes, they did. This is the data, sorry, it is the
Sorry,
data.
Toko, the local didn't get the chance. That is a
I'm happy
complaint
to-
we are getting it.
I'm happy to have a meeting to talk through how the process works.
Shirley,
That would be helpful.
So Shirley and Rajan, I think we can take that offline.
Thank you, Chair. Before we jump into the Afro-Caribbean Black Boys Not Progressing, is it possible that we can go back and deal with Byron Court? We have 2 presenters here this evening, Chair, with all respect, and I don't think we've finalized answering or giving them any form of solace in the questions that they've asked in their presentations. So I would like to go to page 34, 4.0, where it starts about stakeholder and ward member consultation and engagement. Now, in relation to the particular school that I've just mentioned, I want to know from officer, when you talk about ward member consultation, I'm one of the ward members for this particular school, Norfolk Park, ma'am. Can you tell me if any consultation was sent to us to have a consultation engagement in terms of stakeholders and ward members meeting up together?
Thank you for that, Diana. Nigel?
I'll have to get back to you, councillor, in terms of that. I mean, certainly, we aim to include and involve all stakeholders with significant issues affecting local schools. I think the issues, what I don't wish to do tonight is get drawn into details on Byron Court, because there are a number of factors which are
I think there's a general
not within the public domain.
So there is a general point which Diana makes about consultation. So paragraph which she references on page 34 talks about stakeholder and ward member consultation and engagement. So I think if you are able to talk a little bit on that point, it will be helpful and reassuring for the committee.
So I think when we talk about stakeholders, we do have a Setting the School Effectiveness Partnership Board that includes representatives from across the school sector and governors as well. That's what drives a lot of our strategic work, and it's that group that signs off our school effectiveness framework. And that's the group that oversees the support that's being given to schools that are in rapid improvement groups and the support that we give across the sector. With regards to ward councillors, we haven't had any specific consultation with regards to Byron Court. We wouldn't normally do that when we're working with the RIG school, because that's where we're working with the school and it's the operational relationship, if you like. Since the Ofsted inspection, there have been meetings that the school has held with parents, and it's very much for the school rather than the local authority, the school and the governors, because of their delegated responsibilities around school attainment and school performance. And there were meetings organised with parents post the Ofsted inspection that our understanding is ward councillors were invited to.
Much more generally, I'm coming back to much more generally, the paragraph is headed ward members, and I wonder if you could just provide some sort of context around how you go about engaging ward members on a much general basis.
Well, I suppose if we consider the school organisation issues that we've dealt with recently in relation to Leopold Primary School, so there has been quite wide involvement and consultation with ward members before any decisions were made in relation to cabinet.
Great, thank you. Diana,
So
please.
in general, then, this is just a general category that you're saying because of that particular school you just mentioned, ward members was engaged, because I was under the impression from what I've read here that ward members who represent different wards should be involved in this consultation, especially with stakeholders and things like that. Why is it just that particular school, please? Or was it?
So I think what we're doing is, if there is a particular issue around school organisation that affects the school that we are responsible for in a particular ward, then we would expect to consult and make sure ward members are consulted on that. And via the lead member, of course, if there are wider issues affecting policy, then of course, you know, there may be issues for other ward members across the council. But for a specific issue, we would speak to the ward members who are affected by that particular issue, like in the case of Leopold.
Okay.
Sure. So thank you very much for that clarification. So kind of linked to that, the issues faced by Byron Court, are there wider issues at play? So with Byron Court being one of the ones that went into kind of the RIG, are we wary about other schools kind of falling into the kind of risk and falling kind of lower?
Thank you. Nigel, please.
So I'll answer that. I mean, I receive a termly update from both Jen and Shirley in relation to schools. I think we can feel very confident that that isn't the case elsewhere, and this is I think an exception. And I feel
reassuring.
Okay.
Confident of that.
Thank you. Gwen, please.
Yeah, I think Nigel and Jen are right to mention the changes in Ofsted, but I would add to that there's been a serious lack of trust in the Ofsted process, really, and you know, that those changes are relevant to Byron Court because it wasn't examined for quite a long time, and you know, there have been a lot of changes within the school during that period. But I think more broadly, the type of inspections that Ofsted do, the use of single word judgments as a whole, and the kind of relationship that Ofsted have more broadly with schools is, you know, reached a kind of crisis point. And I think that, you know, that's why Labour have pledged to reform the system.
Thank you very much, Gwen. No.
So my question actually relates to Byron Court. Now, after academisation, the council's involvement in that particular school, because although the council was involved since September 22 to improve it, it didn't really work. The reason given is resources, but I think there is more to it, because if you read the media, there's issues are far greater than just resources. So what is council's involvement going to be? Are we going to say after it becomes an academy, or that we don't have control over it? Now it's an academy. A second thing, I think the parents in the deputation asked whether this particular subject will come back to the scrutiny committee. Can we give them an assurance? Yes, we will look after this school and we will bring this subject back to the scrutiny. Thank you.
So I'll pick up the second point, and Nigel or Shirley, a very quick response to the first aspect would be appreciated.
So yes, so once an academy order is in place and there's an academy sponsor, then the responsibility for running and the management of that school sits with the academy. The local authority still has certain elements of responsibility around education, some elements around admission, support for children with SEND, but the primary work will pass out of the responsibility of the local authority once the academisation is complete.
Thank you very much.
Just one I forgot to ask. The school is having difficulties, and I heard somebody say that the capacity is going to be increased. Is it a sensible thing to actually increase the capacity while the school is still in having troubles?
Shirley.
So the point was about leadership capacity, not the size of the school.
Thank you.
So we have increased leadership capacity to support the school.
Thank you very much. And to your second point, to your first sets of question, is I have already responded by saying that we will certainly be keeping in a watching brief. So absolutely, thank you very much. And I'm going to bring this item to close.